Hello and welcome back to Tuesdays with Tom. I'm Greg. This week I want to talk to you about something that you wouldn't think would come up as a topic for us to discuss because we're all assisted living or adult residential facility administrators and we know what we do. But I want to talk to you about something that will come up and probably does come up, especially in the RCFE, and that is, what's the difference between an RCFE and a skilled nursing facility? In fact, let's take it a step further. What's the difference between a home care organization and a residential care facility for the elderly and a skilled nursing facility? So as an administrator in a facility, it's probably a good idea for you to understand the differences too. You're going to have people coming in wondering what they need to do for their loved one. They're going to be in a crisis situation. They're not sure what they're looking for. And you need to be able to make a recommendation that's going to be in the best interests of the family as well as the senior in question. Let's start out with the difference between a home care organization and a residential care facility for the elderly. Home care organization, also called HCO, is a situation where caregivers are sent into an individual's private residence to provide care. This is a non-medical arrangement. However, there are some staffing agencies that will provide actual nurses, and that is something that not everyone does, and it's quite expensive to do that. So let's just focus on the non-medical side of a home care organization. These caregivers are very similar to the caregivers that work in a residential care facility for the elderly. In fact, the fingerprint clearance is exactly the same. There is no difference. So in residential care, you've got caregivers working inside of a facility, a residential care facility. With home care organization, your caregivers are working in the private residence. They're doing essentially the same thing. The difference is in home care organizations, the caregiver is primarily providing one-on-one care, and they're providing that care in short intervals, usually somewhere at a minimum of 2 to 3 hours, and oftentimes it can be for the entire day. And in rare occurrences, maybe even a 24-hour arrangement. In residential care facility for the elderly, of course, the residents live there. It's their residence. And the care is provided by a number of different caregivers, and those caregivers are responsible for a number of different residents. Both situations require that these caregivers have training. Home care organization caregivers are not required to have the extent of training as the residential care facility caregivers. RCFE caregivers are required to have an initial training of 40 hours within the first month of starting work. Home care organization caregivers also have a specific set of topics that they need to be trained on, but it's not nearly as extensive. The other difference is between a home care organization and a residential care facility is the home care organization needs to have a bond for truthfulness, where an RCFE is not required to carry that type of a bond. One thing that you should know is that the caregivers between a home care organization and a residential care facility for the elderly, they can move between both of those realms. As I said earlier, the fingerprint clearance is exactly the same for those jobs. So if a caregiver in either one of those settings wants to work in the other setting, it's just simply a matter of affiliating their fingerprint clearance with that organization. And finally, the cost is something to consider when talking about home care organizations versus residential care facility for the elderly. Since we're talking one-on-one care in the HCO setting versus a caregiver managing the care for multiple individuals in RCFE, the cost is about 3 times the amount of an RCFE. Home care organization right now generally charging somewhere between $30 to $35 an hour for that service. The same service in an assisted living broken into an hourly rate would be about 3 times less per hour. So those are some things to consider. As an administrator, talk to people about that. Maybe there's a better option for people coming through your facility looking for care. Thank you very much.